Hey everyone, hope you've been enjoying the awesome theme that's been playing for the last probably couple of minutes. Today we're working on analysis of matches that I've had recently. We're looking into some neuro stuff, some bot stuff, and generally just the Kolin matchup for those who are not too familiar with it. She's fairly popular, especially in casuals these days. This content is being rebroadcast on the 2MK mainstream with full permission from me, of course. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I had approximately 12 matches that we'll be going through today. And there's a lot of topics to cover relative to the Kolin matchup. This was the same time for casuals. I was pushing out to get the fight money. We all know that feeling. And I ended up facing some relatively decent bronze level Kolins. Well, the idea behind the match that I was trying to get done on this day was primarily about fixing some bad habits and dealing with a neurological problem that I have. I'll go into detail about this as we go.
Round one.
But first, for this particular thing, it's really important that I actually turn on the inputs. And there will be some points where I slow this down. I've got two major problems when it comes to playing Kolin that aren't about mindset, they're not about skill set. They're about the way I think of the character. So this is my warm-up. I hadn't played anything else yet for the day. And therefore I hadn't managed to push myself into the mindset that I normally need in order to play casual. At this point, I'm playing to beat this person. And that's not actually in my best interest at this point. So you can see that my spacing is around the level that I normally function at.
Round two.
The reading of the opponent, the pressure, those sorts of things. I'm playing my full Kolin game except for like one part that I'm leaving out on purpose, because it doesn't really work on other Kolins. I'm playing the matchup. I'm trying to win. Still got some weaknesses in that I don't do that cancel into EX Parabellum from Sweep similarly. So I can see through a bunch of what this player is doing. But I've still got some holes in the game that will be explained a little bit further on. Their play is approximately what you'd expect. It's mostly them thinking that they should do particular things at particular spaces. Definitely not a bad way to go, especially at their current rank level. At least that's what's indicated. Whether or not they deserve that rank level, I'd have to look up. So the most thing you should take from match one is the idea that at this point, I'm still actually playing to win. Because normally it's difficult to get yourself into the playing to learn mindset on your very first match. All your muscle memory kicks in, the things you do automatically kick in. In fact, a lot of the time, if you just wanted to get a little points, the best thing you can do is to play 1 or 2 matches at a time and go, because you're going in fresh. There's not a lot of other stuff on your mind. So from there, it's time to start shifting. And I'm shifting because I'm using casual matches to get rid of a problem that I can't actually get rid of by playing against the computer very well, or by playing against any of our bots very well. The CPU can give me some of it, but you really need a player to pull out the sort of things that I'm trying to fix. Because players will fall into patterns and they will learn to exploit your patterns. The CPU learns how to exploit your patterns somewhat, but it's not as reliable in terms of its own patterns. It doesn't find solutions to things, it finds ways to avoid situations.
Round 1.
So at this point, I'm starting to shift. I'm starting to think, okay, what was it I was trying to learn here? What was it I was trying to do? The first thing I was trying to do is fix a problem I have with the way I execute that motion. Since it will come out just from mashing, even though for some strange reason my mind seems to think that I need to do that as a quarter circle back motion, I get away with that a lot because the thing that I've done is enough mashing to make the move come out correctly regardless. So that match went approximately as expected. And then I decided, wait, I probably shouldn't be trying this much to win because it doesn't solve anything. So there you see, I'm specifically trying to stop myself from doing the thing that I worried about. The problem is that this person immediately found a good way to take me by surprise and keep this going. Good Kolin setup. But there, you can see I've got that problem. I do that move the wrong way around. And that's just flatly a neurological problem because I don't use it enough in neutral to think of it as that motion. And I probably should, but that won't necessarily fix the combo problem because that's not how the brain usually works. So due to that, I ended up in a lot of situations where if I jumped, it would be a bad idea. So I figured I'll just V-skill because they're not really stopping the V-skill. I can get closer and try to deal with it. If I V-skill and they mispunish, then I get to attempt to push it out. Now, the thing I learned about this player fairly quickly is that they like to use a lot of lows and quick attacks to push me back out. You can see it here, a lot of hitting jab while I'm pressuring them or in close to get things started. So once I realized, alright, they're not going to give me this unless I recondition them. They're not going to allow me to pressure them and try to get my muscle memory fixed. So I'm going to try to fix something different. As I said at the beginning, I have two problems with this sort of thing. The first is that I do quarter circle back motions for Parabellum. The second is much worse. The second is that for some reason, I'm a Blue Mary player in most older KOF games. And unfortunately, Blue Mary has counters that are the opposite of the way that Kolin's function. Not only are they kicks instead of punches, because that would be relatively easy to adapt to, but Blue Mary does her counters the opposite way. If you press full backward motion on the stick / pad and use heavy kick, Blue Mary counters low. If you use light kick, Blue Mary counters high. I've been playing Blue Mary for a long time, so Kolin can cause me problems with that. The second part of that is the amount of times I'll miss an EX medium counter because of the way that EX moves are set up in Capcom games when you do this sort of thing. So first of all, I had to try this without hitting any EX counters. I don't have meter yet, so it's not a big deal for me. So I just checked, okay, is this player likely to fall for that pretty much every time? I just wanted to make them stop hitting clings in close, honestly. I probably should have gone for the last one. But yes, They're that sort of person. So, you just have to go with it because they are a lower level bronze player, so it's easier to catch them in strings and autopiloting and just stuff that they believe will work because of that. The other thing to remember if you're a new Kolin player is that not every crouching move is a low, and you have to depend on your medium counter quite a lot, and you can be messed up a lot more when the opponent is crouching, because as soon as they crouch, they can change whether or not they are doing a low or a medium by hitting different buttons. You don't generally have the capacity to say this goes this way or the other way. So right now, I'm adapting to the fact that if they are at longer range and they use her crouching medium kick, I have to low counter it, and if they use crouching light punch, I have to medium counter it. Fortunately, they have a lot of motions there that don't matter. And finally I got it done, only to end up getting back to the problem with the Parabellum and getting destroyed in the end as a result. But I achieved my goal. I got back to the point where I can attempt Parabellum stuff and EX Parabellum stuff with the correct timing and spacing, with a bunch of that thrown in for just when I'm close enough to make them miserable. But you can see one of the things that plagues many of bronze players and quite a while up into the ranks. Even if you're being completely pressured and defeated by something, it's not always a good idea to change it, and you might get a lot more success by not changing it if you fight someone like me who overthinks basically everything. You'll note that I did the motion wrong again. And I could have just countered again there and solved the problem. So, unfortunately, as close as the match was, I didn't get a lot out of that directly in that way. And because it was very little zoning and mostly Kolin trying to be in each other's face, I didn't get any real ideas about what it is that a Kolin makes you feel so as to come up with a better bot. Kolin bot is in no way even remotely structured as yet because she has so many options, and I have to fight a lot of mid-level to higher level Kolin players to figure out what exactly it is about her that she can spam or can take people by surprise with, that you would need in order to make a bot that would help someone learn something about the matchup or about how to play in general. You can't make a Kolin bot that does random counters because that's fairly easy to get around. And you can't make a Kolin bot that does random versions of Vanity Step because similarly it's relatively easy to get around. That will probably be at least part of what the bot is about, mainly mixing up different Vanity Steps, but it could be a little difficult.
Round 1. Fight!
So here I am trying to solve the same problem. And recognizing that this player likes to use lows at various ranges. So rather than go through what I went through with the last player, I figure I'm just going to wait until they push out and do the low anyway, because Kolin doesn't have a lot of moves that are fast enough or safe enough to make the player feel comfortable throwing out something else after I have missed the counter on the low. Unfortunately, this isn't going to help me directly. I thought it was going to help a lot more because of which counters I use and what they will do. It got fairly close because, again, I'm working on the neurological effect of playing Blue Mary for many years. So right now, I need to get close to them, get them to do that, and me having hit the right button. If you watch my inputs though, I'm not even trying to counter at this point. And the one time I did, I attempted the EX medium counter. One good way to do this when you're learning Kolin is to do a fair amount of safe moves that will push your opponent to a specific range and make them want to use the crouching medium kick, which will then let you pull the counter off. Whiffing the V skill is actually part of the playstyle involved in doing this. It's what makes up the Kolin matchup and why it's difficult to play against her. So, one of the first things that a Kolin bot will have is definitely V skill related things, which is great because much like Kami bot, any V skill that takes a while is great for hiding a lot of inputs in and easy to incorporate into a bot. Characters with V skills that parry or similar, it gets a little harder to make their bots, but Kolin is definitely going to have some basis in that, and that will probably be action 1, and I'll think about what to hide in there. The primary issue would then be what to make her do after that, or whether or not to have the V skill just end and everything else she does come out of the start of a different one. You could probably hide her V skill, her V trigger within the V skill. That's a good thought to go with for now, because she should build it up fairly quickly. You could also maybe hide a counter in it in case she wakes up with... So as to prevent her from waking up with nothing. Maybe that's around the time she should do that, because then you'd have her never do it in neutral. This is the sort of thought process that goes into bot creation for me. So that's the first thought, but now I'm going back into a match and thinking about how to use this counter properly. This person's spacing gave me the idea that I could use just sweep, basically. And sniping kick as well. Unfortunately, this person also jumps a bit more than I'd expect them to, and uses the close neutral jump after knockdown picks up, which worked well there because I was expecting it again. But I realized I wasn't getting enough, so I should probably try to defeat them. I didn't know if I would find a way, but there is a particular sequence that makes this sort of easier.
Round 2. Fight!
I'm not actually expecting these sweeps to hit, but I did get a chance to fix the other thing I was mentioning. And part of the reason why I can't solve that problem is because there is something in reactions called a choice decision. A choice decision can't be done as quickly as a regular one because it is a path. You're identifying one option and then having the appropriate response to it. Unfortunately, in fighting games, there's a different type of thing that mimics this and can be a real problem. When you're learning a new reaction, even though you're not making a strong choice in terms of reacting to what you see, as in you've discerned what you need to do, but then you get stuck because your brain must try to quickly choose which thing of the two things that you have been working on you should actually do. So if they don't jump here, my response should be, oh, well, it's time for anti-air counter. But due to the Blue Mary problem, I end up thinking for a little while about what exactly high counter is. And it takes too long, and I can tell myself, oh right, I'm just not going to do anything here. The other problem you'll see is that this causes my meter to build up unused relatively well, because the Kolin matchup doesn't really give you much use for her EX Vanity step setups, and similarly not really much use for her EX Hailstorm setups. As you'll see right there, I yet again did the low counter, because I'm not over it, and it is very easy to fall into those sort of things. So, I take the loss due to that effect. I may have lost anyway, but I definitely cannot manage to do it with that bad wiring in there. Fortunately, this didn't go on for too long, and I was able to get back to dealing with entirely different problems. So here we have a silver player who seems to be, based on what I experienced in this match, good enough at their Kolin that they know what they want to do at any particular range. Because the Kolin mirror is two relatively defensive characters facing off most of the time, it can be fairly confusing to someone who hasn't spent a lot of time learning their setups. And I fully admit that actually for the purposes of learning other things about Kolin, I haven't spent a lot of time learning her setups. So here we're starting to see which of us is going to counter the other correctly more often. It becomes a very cinematic match in a lot of ways. That setup is not actually good, but I know that against other Kolin, I'm not really going to get a chance to use that otherwise, so I just use it to maintain space most of the time. You get more out of pushing other Kolins back, because neither of us really want to play footsies in first place. Got caught with that, so you can see that their ranges of most things are quite good. And they're not willing to try to press the advantage to get in when they've got resources to somehow do damage anyway. So this became fairly heavy pressure, and yet again, I didn't really think of doing the correct counter in the space I've got. But you'll note that the reason is because I'm paralyzed. There's a choice decision that I'm failing to make within the time frame that the game gives me. So you'll notice that I don't actually counter at all. The reason I don't counter at all is because I'm so hyper aware of the fact that my counters are miswired that I'll get caught on that, snagged so to speak, and never pull off the counter. This is the feeling that many of us are familiar with because it's effectively choking. You will look back at the match and hold your head and lament to yourself and wonder, why didn't I do the thing that I know works here? But it's simply that you didn't have enough time, and you possibly didn't train the muscle memory required enough. This is why grinding on muscle memory helps a lot. But for certain characters, when it's a double choice decision where you must first identify something that happens and then do the correct response, it can be hard to set up training mode to make this happen when it's not among wake up actions. For meaties, you can probably get yourself to do it. For counter hits confirming, you can probably get yourself to do it. But this becomes pretty hard because counter stuff is primarily You have to react in real time to real people doing things that don't necessarily make sense to you at the time. You're trying to predict them rather than reacting to them. And the CPU and bots don't always help with that. I completely deserved this. But I did go for the medium counter there. I'm not really sure why it failed because it is frame 1. But it'll just teach me to be more careful. The person might simply have their meaties down timing wise to the point where not even the EX counter would work. Not that time though. So far we know this about them. They are willing to do that sort of close range pressure. And I might be able to take a little bit out of that. But there goes a large chunk of life. And unfortunately, since I got so focused on it, I didn't solve the other problem yet either. A lot of failures and inability to rank up can be attributed to this sort of thing. You're trying really hard, you know what to do, but your execution or some part of the way you're thinking about the move is off, and that makes it more and more likely to fail you in a critical moment. Pros don't have this problem, not specifically because it's that different, but simply that they practice way more than most of us have the capacity to. This was an interesting opponent primarily because it wasn't that laggy, even though that is actually the flag of the Seychelles, which is off the east coast of Africa. I did look into this person after this to find out whether or not they most likely were actually down there. I can't tell because they get connections to Europe, they get connections to the US, and they apparently get connections to Japan, and based on some of their match history, most of their opponents play it out. They don't like disconnect because it was laggy. And from my recollection, this match basically didn't lag, so congratulations to the Seychelles, or just this particular person's supreme internet, because I really didn't think that playing from where I am to off the coast of Africa was a thing that Capcom could easily achieve. Note it's also a peer-to-peer connection. And yet, I have no real recollections of lag in this match, except at possibly 1 point.
Round 1. Fight.
They also messaged me afterwards, but I'll get to that at the end. So immediately I realized, okay, this person has enough patience, at least, to make this hard on me. And I'm not necessarily going to get to practice much of what I wanted. A very patient Kolin means you basically shouldn't ever jump on them, because you will die. The problem being that Kolin has a good anti-air. So if you attempt to empty jump, she can deal with it. You have to make that hard call. And as you'll note as the match goes on, something else I realized. The specific way that she's set up when you try to cross her up means that you can't really use the ice platform to get you very far in it either. I decided to adopt the strategy of jumping completely incorrectly so that the jump in would always completely miss, and possibly give them the idea of moving in closer so that they could catch me that way. Unfortunately, their responses were on point, and I simply got the correct response to a cross-up. For those who don't know, the correct response to a cross-up, especially with a character who needs to cross up with their light button, is instantly throw them. Even if they hit you, there's a good chance that this will work. So I can't space myself to use sweeps, and they're not going to give me the chance to straight up counter them. And I definitely don't have the reaction required yet to do the EX type counter, but I probably shouldn't have tried in the first place. Wasn't necessary. So this Kolin played as Kolin should be played, but I wasn't able to get anything off it myself because, as you can see, the match really didn't involve either of the things that I wanted to work on. The interesting thing is that that particular win quote is one of the ones you have to choose. She doesn't just say that as auto. But I can assume that the person playing this was sort of arrogant, and again, I'll get to why. So in terms of the mindset, in terms of thinking about how to make this matchup work for me, the idea is that it had become fairly hard. They stay at the spacing that allows them to react to most things, and they definitely don't seem to have holes in their reactions. So, based on that, how does one go about opening up a defensive Kolin that is familiar and comfortable with their character? You can do it with a lot of other characters because of their unconventional movement or unconventional attack pressure. But Kolin doesn't actually have a lot of attack pressure. So, in my case, I'm forced to try to play it out with them, trying to get my aim only. So you see the completely whiffed jumping heavy kick, and my own reaction to their crossover. Unfortunately, that doesn't actually work that well, and we both either know that or learned it. So, again, completely whiffed, but their reactions are right there, exactly ready. In fact, this match turns out to look sort of silly. But they gave me the chance to do that, which I don't work on much, so I figured it was good. But note again, cross-up attempt, and immediately, down I go. I did it just to test if they could do it every time. Because you should never jump on Kolin that much in the first place. The best you can hope for is that you can trick an opposing Kolin into attempting to counter you when your cross-up whiffs entirely. But I couldn't trick this person, and I couldn't push them out. So right here, at this point I admit fully that I'd basically given up. Because what my goal was about making sure that I could do counters or try to fix my input problems against the real opponent. This was not the opponent to do that with. The best I got was realizing that if I poked them to a particular point, I could maybe get the low counter. And I did that wrong again. That was the only opportunity I got for what I was trying to train, and it didn't go well. But what I had realized is that they didn't actually use their counter even though I do certain wake-ups. I couldn't figure out whether or not it was because they wanted to keep the meter or just didn't really expect it. But you can totally do that on reaction. If you have even the slightest expectation that your opponent intends to do that on your wake-up, you can EX counter that. So, good games, Teratomentos. After a while, they actually messaged me and told me that it was a good game, so presumably they had similar opinions, and told me to hurry up and practice my Kolin. I doubt I'll ever directly connect to them again, but maybe I'll hit them up and see if I can get games. Unfortunately, I wasn't necessarily interested in moving to that because the Kolin mirror was definitely not going to achieve what I wanted at the time. Now obviously, since these are all cherry-picked, I just took all the Kolin matches I played out of all the casual matches I played that day. This is actually the last match of the day. The last set of the day. So, within the actual flow of my playing, I had reached the point of, okay, I think I'm done. I had already gotten my casual money and decided I was just going to play a little bit more anyway. But I was no longer in the playing to learn mood by this point. And seeing another Kolin triggered me to think, I'm not going to get to practice anything. I should just try to win. And that actually isn't so difficult. Knowing your spacing with Kolin is much more important, because you can bait opponents into many more things. It's just that if you're trying to be on the offensive, you can't really bait very much. But as you can see, if you know your spacing well enough, you can make things really uncomfortable for other Kolin. Because the damage she does when you randomly hit a few buttons isn't good enough to justify worrying about certain things she can do in particular spaces. You can just let her roll with it if she hits you with the V skill occasionally. There's a range at which she can combo into it well, and a range at which she can't, and you just don't have to worry about it. I'm still sad that anti-air jab is not necessarily in the game, but you can react so late with it. Unfortunately, I don't think there really is a solution. Unfortunately, I fully admit that at this point I started to underestimate this opponent. I will point out that this is something that many people will realize. When you're in bronze, if you learn enough about your character, it doesn't generally mean that you're going to get out of bronze. The reason for that is, if you learn to play this game really well, but you're still working on holes in your gameplay, it's actually harder to beat bronze people than it is to beat silver and higher, because silver and higher players will assume that you have certain skills and will not press on you or happen to take advantage of those things. In bronze, it tends to be a bit more of a back and forth, where you beat people really badly because whatever they do loses to whatever you can do. Or you get beaten really badly because they happen to do something you're really bad at stopping, or hit buttons in strings or in places where you expect spacing or similar. So this sort of game is what you see in silver when you're playing a lot more slowly. Slowly is a good way to put it. But I decided that this amount of points is a good amount of points to be at for doing research, for looking into bots and so on. So I didn't really sweat it about keeping my rank points up. Especially since if you play at certain times of the day, which I'm able to do, the matching algorithm will push you fairly high. You can face some really high ranked people and get a wide experience, even if you're at this level. It's specifically between 1800 and 2000 points in my experience that they'll still match you with up to 3000, 3500, so on, and much less against people greatly lower than you. So you get a good experience about your character without much. So if you've hit that point, don't push too much about getting too much higher. It's not necessarily going to help. That's why we play in casuals, because hopefully other people have settled into whatever their rank is, and the matchmaking will do the job for you. In terms of the Kolin bot, we've definitely got a little bit of information from both the defensive player Radamentos from earlier, but bots are difficult to build for defensive. I'll have to think about that for quite a while. But you could definitely see some spacing stuff that they could do, and general walk back and forward patience. That's never been something we put into a bot before, but you could really just have an action that is just them chilling out. It might make the goals difficult to come up with. So here, I decided, okay, let's get relatively serious with this person because I underestimated them too much. What Kolin has and what the bot will definitely need to have is a mix-up that is based on her having a dash throw that is very similar in spacing to her V-skill. Kolin's dash throw range, if you execute it properly, is very close to correct for that. And her sweep is only slightly closer in, so when you feel as if your opponent is going to try to move at you, you can sweep instead. Even if they change their minds and block it, you should be alright. So the third thing I'm definitely considering is just the dash throw that you have to get used to. Maybe at this level, it'll work out. The thing is that I haven't seen other Kolins use the dash throw mix-up that much, so in terms of determining what should this bot do, it becomes difficult in that you can't necessarily know. One thing I have considered is fortunately that she should have some form of jump in. And it can probably be one of those jump ins that allows her to do different things in the air, different timings of things, that sort of thing. So we're close to having at least 4 actions. God love that jumping kick. Clips perfectly well. If you're a Kolin player, look into the hitboxes of that move. It will drastically improve your game if you don't think of that move as just something to hit with normally, and that it has some forms of variations. So what we're looking for in the Kolin bot so far is a mostly defensive bot that jumps occasionally, uses the jumps to set up particular things, and uses a V-skill dash throw mix-up that can somehow mimic what I personally believe makes Kolin strong. Because getting out of or worrying about Kolin setups, if you are up against an opponent who has learned a lot of Kolin setups, you probably are not in a good situation even if you have gone up against the bot quite a lot. It might be good to put something into the dash throw just to see if you can get a mix-up from that, because she's got certain good ones. But I'll do some research on Kolin mix-ups to get the bot into a better state. After this, I will be attempting to program the proof of concept for the bot on the stream. At least 4 actions, maybe some random 5th one.
Round 1. Fight!
The other option obviously is medium kick vanity step and what it allows you to get, because it has a lot of motions that are very similar to what you might use in quote-unquote regular flows. And it also can use many of the same things that the jump-in can use. So the important part about this match is that I finally got this opponent to become more aggressive because they were being generally annoyed. This didn't help my training, but it did help me come up with a better idea for one particular bot thing. Namely, the point system. Because I realized that Kolin is technically the hardest character to time a proper jump-in combo on. Technically, she could really be used as the one bot we don't have so far. The idea of a bot whose aim is to make you try to jump in on them. Normally, a bot isn't strong enough defensively for this to be even remotely a challenge. You just do it and it doesn't really pose any difficulty at all. Furthermore, generally, most people learn their jump-in combos early enough that maybe they overdo it and it doesn't come up in the first place. But the idea is, can I make a bot that's good enough to make jumping in on it difficult and make you actually think about how this works?
Kolin wins.
As for that particular match, I would say that was overall terrible on my part. Or more so, the last round was terrible. And for anyone who's curious, I've been just informed by someone who works with the depths of the internet, shoutouts to OmniRabbit, that the Seychelles are actually on an important internet exchange point, and therefore it's not really that weird that their internet connection is that good. So I may in fact hit them up for games later. So let's hit up training and see what we can get. For anyone out there who is interested in just setting up bots as a general thing, not really coming up with the same sort of bots we use, I'll note that the best option for who to test this against is usually Ryu, because Ryu allows you to spend a certain point of the bot creation process that other characters generally don't give you. Ryu can change the flow of certain characters by parrying them, which gives you a third way to test the effectiveness of your hidden input stuff. We're not using any of that. But I will use the white today. So the most basic possible stuff we can think of here is, as I said, the bot's gonna try to fight you in neutral. And probably one of your jobs is to jump in. Let's see what I've got to do. Action recording settings, recording slot number 1. Now I'm gonna stand here because here is where she has a combo. And that combo is interesting in that I think if you do it just right, she can do certain things after it. So I'm going to try to go V-skill into crouching light punch, which is relatively easy to pull off for most people. Of course, if you mash the crouching light punch and don't know the pure timing, you'll end up doing Parabellum without meaning to. And if you don't mash it, you have to learn the timing. So the very first thing we should have this bot do is V-skill into crouching light punch and immediately stop the recording. That was in no way stopping the recording. The problem with this is that the range is sort of finicky, but not very. Now, that's with no hidden inputs, so we're definitely going to have to go back to do it later. But as you can see, the V-skill is pretty fast, so the thought that should be in your mind is, I'm only going to get to hide one input, maybe two inputs if I'm really good at hitting things. But you can easily get a direction in, and it's useful when you have this sort of thing to hide probably a jump in there. So just for proof of concept we're doing that, but most likely I'm going to hide both a jump and some form of punch, kick, or throw, maybe all three of those things. So now we've got the dash throw mix up, and it's hard to put things into dashes. They're relatively short, but the timing for putting in things after a double tapping forward for most people is fairly difficult. We should probably input something after the successful throw, which makes this recording relatively long, which we know doesn't work, but we're putting it in anyway. Mostly because it doesn't really work on anything, because you can't back roll out of throws, but it will work in the sense that it gets the bot to do that without having to worry about it. The throw completes, so definitely after a whiffed throw, they'll still try this, which can be good. We're not sure yet. You could also throw a V skill into the throw, which is in a different way useful because it means that the recognition of what the V skill means is different. So that's the concept for that one for now. It's useful sometimes to put a jump hidden in a throw, but throws tend to eat most inputs, and it may not matter. You could hide a counter in it too. So let's see what we've got. Recording slot 3, therefore, should probably be some form of startup of something else. Something that will make the jump or the dandy step work. And this is where it starts to get difficult because you have to decide how to make use of extra buttons. In terms of a medium kick, we technically already have a medium kick available. In fact, had you done the initial one from crouching, the initial V skill from crouching, it would even be better because when you hit medium kick and medium punch at the same time, the game will treat it as a medium kick. I'll just demonstrate briefly now for an example that if I do the neutral jump into V skill, I'm hitting the V skill button, but she's doing this. Unfortunately, this means that when I'm on the ground, she'll do V skill instead of crouching medium kick, which I sort of want. But let's look at what happens if I hit V skill during dandy step. Well, vanity step, we're still getting bad here. If I hit crouching, then I'll get that, which is really useful for us. So, we can at least attempt to fix one in that way later, to give her the option of doing those two things. The key then is, what else do we want her to be able to do on a jump in, and do we want to do step mix-ups? Well, our first good option for a step mix-up is to see what happens if you do this. That should obviously work. That works fairly well, even if I'm at that point of the jump. And because Kolin, as I mentioned before while we were playing, has this movement downward of the hitboxes and can clip you like that, or like that. So she can hit you there, she can hit you there, and she can hit you somewhere in between. So doing the kick fairly high up is not bad, and goes well with the other stuff we were doing. So all I really need here is a jumping vanity step, and to end the recording there. And since I can't think of anything great to hide in that, let's just do that for now. The easy way to do this is generally to do the motion, figure out where exactly you feel like hitting the kick, and make yourself hit the options button to end the recording at that point instead. It's exactly the same, and just do that. It gets harder when you start to hide inputs in it because your brain has to keep up with it, but it's not that hard when you're just inputting basic stuff. So now we are trying to figure out what else we can get done. We want her to do that kick at some point. So what else can we put in that will cause the heavy kick to come out? Well, we did want a sweep, and it doesn't matter once you're in the air. If you're holding down, the sweep will still work. So let's just have her do a sweep. In fact, let's have her do a sweep that she attempts to cancel, because her sweep won't cancel unless she makes contact. And that's a good thing to put here. That can work. In fact, if you're aware of the timing required to make her do her initial one, you can get a very interesting thing to happen. I'm pretty sure that with just the right timing, you can get her to do that, do the heavy kick dandy step, vanity step, and then because of the timing of the dash throw, do the air throw. So you could possibly recreate that entire combo through a very specific sequence of input actions here. Now the last thing we need is possibly some other input overall. We've got the heavy kick in. We've got the medium kick in, which I have to fix. What else do you really need for Kolin to feel like Kolin? We could try to put in counters, but that would happen in neutral, and it's better therefore to hide that sort of move inside something else. So the question is, do I even have more than 4 inputs to work on right now? I could leave slot 5 empty and start to think up something else later. It's usually in my best interest to do that. However, I am somewhat interested in a very specific thing she can do that might be good for slot 5. And I'll get back to that once I've done minor testing on these. So we've got the potential for her to whip a throw and do certain things in neutral. When she whiffs the sweep, she doesn't do Parabellum because of that, and you get a relatively long period of her doing nothing. So that would become an easy-ish time to jump in on her, and therefore might cause the bot some problems. And it looks like that is a little too slow in some way. So it is definitely something I need to think about. But if you are familiar enough with Kolin, or just have a little time to practice it, you can learn the timing that allows you to put in the motion, and then do it a little earlier than that. Now the other thing is that in order to get vanity stat mix-ups out of this, you would have to use the medium kick one at some point. And that makes it a little difficult to get both of the things that I'm thinking of doing in together. So yeah, that is doing the right thing, but because I did the recording, I ended the recording too late, she now won't do it that way. But I've just recognized that if I do the recording in just the right way, her next action, if I'm in the 1 state, may in fact be fast enough to eat the V skill input and do the V trigger input, which would also allow for the other combo. So I'm beginning to think that the Kolin bot might have its own automatic sequence that it can do if you know the timings right. Whether or not I work on these timings now is a different matter. But at the very least, let's improve her a little bit. So proof of concept gives us a general idea of timings and the way that things will interact, and therefore gives us somewhere to start. So the first thing I need to do is change the initial V skill into crouching V skill, change the other things into crouching heavy or crouching medium punch, probably crouching heavy, and possibly to throw in a V skill directly after that, which is a little bit hard sometimes, but you can easily do without that. So 1 is going to be a little bit more difficult now because I have to hit the V skill, hit crouching heavy punch, hit V trigger, and then still get the jab. You can leave out one of those to make it a little better. And you shouldn't spend too long in the down position because it obviously makes the bot harder. So this sort of thing is difficult because it's not muscle memory, so you have to often force yourself to think through it, and thinking through it makes it slower. So I can do that, but then my mind won't let me go to the crouching light punch as fast as I'd like to. But you can do it one step at a time. Unfortunately, you have to be really careful with this one because at that point you've hit punch 3 times. So it becomes an issue. In fact, technically I think it might register that you hit punch 4 times. We'll see. So that was a lot closer. I'll turn on inputs actually. I should have done that from the very beginning to see what I've got. Key display on. And now I'm going to go back to just looking at action 1 to see what I actually put in. The whiffed V skill leads to V trigger. I might want to do that faster or the other way. It's kind of a problem. So I'm going to have to V skill into V trigger super fast so that that cancel doesn't happen. Because I don't want it to happen. Which means that the crouching heavy punch has to go in after that. Which is actually slightly easier to do as an overall thing. But mashing is a thing, and mashing is difficult. So you can see that in this case, it actually didn't turn out that bad. But it's still not good enough. And that was far beyond what I intended to do. So we're going for V skill instant. V skill instant V trigger. You can see that the inputs were almost correct, but unfortunately I didn't get the actual jab to combo, so gotta try again. Nope. So you can see that doing this makes it fairly hard, but if you took out the crouching heavy punch, it would probably still be just as effective as the bot. The only reason the crouching heavy punch is in there is in the very, very strange situation where you think it will help the bot anti-air. Okay, now we've got something, but that looks like a lot of pushback, so I have to worry about that. I probably should not do that with him in the corner. But we did get rid of that part of the cancel. So I'm going to leave that like that for now and turn back on some of the other inputs. Mostly to remind myself what I was thinking of doing with each one of them. I am not sure what that came out of, but it's not so bad as it has it. Right, so after seeing that, the first thing I think of is that 4 needs a difference in timing. I'm confirming that it is 4, it is not 4, it is 3. But you see, she does in fact get the... Yeah, it needs a difference in timing because it looks like the kick is too slow. And... No, that's actually still too slow because she's doing that way later than I want her to. So, we're going to fix 3 a little bit. And we're going to try to think of what else can go in here. Because that's a fairly long move. You could get some other stuff in. You could get in the same sort of crouching heavy punch. But what would be useful to the player if they manage to knock her down and get her there? If you've knocked her down, I think we want to put in a counter. Or we could try hiding her super in it, because that's a good wake up for her to have. We'll see. Because you basically only have as long as it takes her to get to the point where she gets into the air. And that can be problematic. Let's do this on this side because I'm slightly more comfortable. So we're going to try this time for either ES high counter or super or both. So we want down to back and kick. Let's go with ES high counter for now. And then... No, actually I should test the super first because I need to see how often the super randomly comes up. So, relatively difficult input, but here we go. So that's the timing you want for this as a normal thing. That actually hit the kick, which I didn't intend to do, but you're getting the idea. The problem with the muscle memory is that obviously I'm very inclined to hit that kick. Fortunately, you can start the super as soon as you've done the step. Is that high enough? We'll see. And did I get into super? I can't really tell, but it looks like... probably yes. You don't need to change too much now. Fortunately, once you've started to do the bot like this and you have all the actions on already, you can just chill. It'll just replace whatever you did with the net then. Now remember that the core problem with 4 is that the cancel on that is too late. Fortunately, this is relatively easy to input, and I'm not really sure it makes much sense to put in other things. You could mash buttons to do the parabellum instead, which would possibly help. Especially if you mashed like a medium or something, but mashing means that she's likely to do parabellum at weird timings regardless, so it's up to you really. I'm pretty sure at this point that I'm considering the mashing. The good reason for that is when you're putting in EX moves for bots, it makes them quick rise. So that might be useful for her to have as a general thing. So I'm going to try mashing it out and see what I get. Probably with medium and light. Yeah, let's go with that. No. Is that fast enough that she can't cancel that way? Or do I have to piano this? I can mash and do the motion, which is probably just as good. Now that's probably too early, but the timing for this is pretty weird. So we're gonna leave it as that for now. That is more like it's supposed to be. Oh look, we definitely got the super in. And we got it off a combo for the standing heavy punch, which I don't even remember that being so good to do. Okay, so we're looking at something decent for now. And I don't actually even remember putting the jump in. Oh, that's probably from my muscle memory of how to do a particular thing. If you can put a jump in at the end of it, because she spent so long doing parabellum anyway, that you could definitely get the jump direction in there. And there's not much else to hide in it at the moment, because I don't think we've got a situation in which she's not either doing sweep or doing that. And if she jumps directly after it, that might be good. It changes up the way that she gets punished for the sweep. So let's call that. Although I seem to have recorded much more than I intended to. Maybe not. We'll see. That's weird because I either did the recording really early or I triggered it without meaning to. So unfortunately I gotta put this in one more time. No. That's what happens when you tell yourself to mash, you end up mashing the motion as well. That's way too late, unfortunately. So you can see that most of why this is hard to input is it's not really about your execution. It's a lot more about the things that you're used to doing, especially if you don't play the character you're trying to input the stuff for. That can be really hard on you. I play this character and I'm still having problems. So that's normally where she does that, but I think that was too slow last time, so one more try and a little bit earlier. I really shouldn't rate that right there. Should let this people play out. The other easy thing to do would be to turn off her meter, but then I don't get the EX parabellum, so. Can one teach oneself not to mash this part? And furthermore, do I want to? Because technically, would it be better if she did super after this? Probably not though. But when your brain hears mash, it mashes motions and buttons. So you gotta teach it really hard. So we're gonna try it on that sort of frame. You're looking for where she's hitting the last of that. I threw in the jump. And we're gonna see what happens. We've got a fairly long time of her standing around after that, but... what exactly is... Oh, that's good. Another useful thing. Ending with the... Ending that way means that she will in fact spend a small amount of time that eats the inputs for a bunch of things when she throws out that move. She'll just keep quiet for a little bit. But in a way, we want her to keep quiet for a little bit. Unfortunately, it's not keeping quiet while blocking. So, to make that even... Wow. To make that even better, we need to make her throw, presumably block, and that is good timing for that. There's a lot of stuff that gets eaten that changes the flow of the fight in ways that can be useful to you. But our main problem here, as you can see, is that she has the potential to spend a lot of time doing nothing in that particular sequence. Especially if, like, you stop her. But it's looking okay for now. Unfortunately, the throw she has is a dash throw, and I'm not sure about the frames relative to where I wanted to get the air throw in, so she may not be able to effectively do that. Because it eats the very first input of the dash as far as I can tell, and therefore she ends up standing there instead. So should I wait longer? We'll see. It's that sort of thinking though. There are a lot of things that can eat that dash input. So it might actually make more sense to wait a small... to like press a button like back or something and then quickly do that. Let me see, what caused that one? That is a pretty interesting reason for her super to come up. This happens a lot in bots though, because when bots have very specific motions, they'll allow themselves to do super because one motion moves into the other and you get weirdness happening. So I've got no complaints overall. But that's probably either negative edge or something similar. This is why actually mashing buttons for bots can help you in terms of making them better. So what did we want and what did we get? We definitely have her ability to do that. We have her ability to do a jumping heavy kick, which is a little bit late, but overall probably not so bad. You still have to at least think about anti-airing her, even though your argument is that you can't really fail the anti-air and get hurt. But that's not really a failure of a bot overall. If a bot doesn't manage to hurt you with the anti-air, but is not focused on the anti-air, then it's like Ryubot. It's not really a big deal. So now we've got to figure out what is left that she really needs to have to be effective. Because it looks a little bit like she's, like the Vandy step, she's still a little bit too slow on. Because you won't get that, and I think when I saw the air move, she's not quite fast enough, so... I'm a little concerned. I'm concerned just enough to think about it. But if we slow her down, she won't necessarily do that as well either. Oh good, that mashing allows her to do that combo, so that's pretty set. So my big concern right now is I don't really feel like redoing the super for that one. No, she's got it. And she's got some problems that you can throw in after it too. So it has mostly to do with where in the jump she happens to start. Yeah, that's going to be something to think about. If you manage to get that in, you should probably not parry her with Ryu. Although, no, that won't work either way because, yeah, she's just going to do that every time and you can't parry the super, so problems. So we're looking at a fairly decent version of the bot for now. Her jumping heavy kick may not bring out everything we want. that works because of the way it crosses over. Unfortunately, it's not already a cross-up, so it doesn't help. I'm not sure we really care if this bot has cross-ups. But it might be worth starting off something she can do with light kick and thinking about how to get that to work. We could try doing light kick vanity step and see what we get, see if we can hide some stuff in it, maybe. In fact, I'm gonna go with that, I think. Because the thing I was thinking about her needing the most is medium and stuff with medium kick vanity. But that's only mostly for keeping a very specific thing happening. So either medium or light kick vanity can work here, especially since she can't throw while she's in it. So I might be able to get out the light kick option regardless in terms of timing. Because I'm not actually sure what she does if she goes from that into the throw. Oh, well, she does the throw relatively late due to the dash, so we're not going to get anything special out of that. And we almost certainly, well no, actually, let's try it. The vanity is long enough that it's possible that she will use that input at the right time. So we're gonna go for medium kick vanity and have that just hit. And also I'm gonna try to hit some buttons before she even starts, because I could mash the medium kick and maybe get something if she doubles up on it. So her combo for this is medium, fierce, VCO. So I'm going to try to put all that in before she even gets back far enough for it to matter. Not there, but again, it's mostly speed. It buffers that, which might not be so bad, but no, because again, she's going to end up doing a move, and we don't want her to do a move, we want her to go into something else from there. And that might be enough, because you actually hit the button around that point. So we will turn on the last playback and see if she can... Ooh! So it looks like we might have everything. She might just be scary now. So there are 3 tests you do to a bot when you're fighting with Ryu, if you want to get really into this. The first test is the simplest one. Light Shoryuken everything. The Light Shoryuken will trade with a bunch of her stuff if she's in the right position. It will often anti-air if you happen to hit it when she's randomly jumping, giving you a lot of understanding of where she gets after anti-air stuff. You can just walk up and do it. There's no specific timing for it. You can use it to test her wake-ups by doing that. You can use it to test her defense and other motions by waiting for her to move. You can use it for Shoryukens as anti-airs and just see how she reacts when anti-aired correctly, because most of us need some anti-air stuff in the bot stuff. But it's just a general test of her overall behaviors. I'm very interested to see what this bot does when I turn off its meters, but it doesn't seem like the sort of bot that should function without the meters, so... So this is the easiest test. At this point you're really just testing... Ooh! I don't even know how that got in there. Oh wait, no, maybe I do. I should check if I have a fierce kick that I don't intend to have though. Because she probably should have done... I can't think of a moment that would not make her sweep instead, so I probably snuck in a heavy kick when I didn't mean to that doesn't have a down on it. Oh no, I know what that is. That is even better because that's what happens when she goes from the medium dandy step into the heavy dandy step, which will make the sniping kick, which I was trying to figure out how to get in here. But now I'm glad to know that, hey, it's in here without me meaning to. This happens a lot. So she has that combo. She has that, which doesn't cancel unless you hit second. I'm thinking she's done except for that space where she doesn't do anything that I either should try to hide something in or just leave there because it's Kolin. But that is in 2. So what exactly is 2 and why do I need to change it? 2 is that. Oh, I know what I was supposed to put in there. Okay, so we're gonna try that. We're gonna try to improve 2. It's gonna be fairly difficult. To improve 2, you would have to be able to dash and within the dash hide a counter. And which counter we don't know and we can't randomize it. So given that the point of the bot is to be able to jump in on her, we're gonna go with the heavy counter and we're gonna go with the EX heavy counter. This is hard to put in for most people. I might manage it quickly and I might not. Because we have similar problems with Lara bot. You have to put it in so fast and dashes ends. The movement from dash to doing that sort of thing is problematic for most people. And the game buffers a lot of things in dashes. It's actually really lenient. So you have to practice doing that. And then make yourself throw afterwards. Which is, depending on what you're using, it can be fairly difficult. That was not what I meant to do. I'm so not used to doing that counter for any reason, which I really should work on. But you have to basically dash and immediately do it, which is hard to get on because you can end up hitting extra buttons. It's just frustrating for a lot of people, but keep at it because it will make the bot really a lot better if you can get it off. My problem here is that somehow I keep on hitting medium kick and all that. Probably when my hands are moving. Pad flares. Plus where my medium kicks are. In fact, you can see that the animation for this is so fast that it's hard to just put in at all. Back throw? Back throw might be better. Because it'll make her change up a lot of things. Alright, let's try for that. But the good thing about this one is, there's no leniency. Once you've got it right, it is absolutely right and you don't have to worry about it anymore. So, let's see what that gives us. I'm going to hope that I actually got the counter in, because it can be finicky. But it's fairly easy to check, because when she gets into her I'm going to stand still now mode. There you go. So once we've gotten that in there, you can be fairly assured that things are going to be mostly okay. You could try hiding other things in the throw if you wanted to be really, really good at it. So let's be completely ridiculous, and I don't suggest anyone actually do this. We're going to put the second heavy punch counter in there. This is much easier because you're just doing it within the throw. The difficulty is simply the number of commands you have to put in to tell yourself that this will work. And because it's a back throw, it becomes difficult. So maybe we will keep the forward throw simply to keep that part of it simple. Okay, so... Nope. I can't get myself to hit the medium punch now. Brains are weird. And I still end up going to back throw, but it might have worked. Let's see what I get if I do it. And I would suggest that if you're going to try this, be pretty lenient on yourself, especially for the second one. No, that is a forward throw, and then I did the wrong motion because it was a forward throw. So be lenient on yourself with the after stuff. This one, you don't have to worry about leniency. It's either going to work or it isn't. If you're fast enough, it works. If you're slow, it doesn't. She will bring out the counter. The Lara one is way worse because you have to do a full... Let's not talk about Lara. Now the problem with that is I took too long. And the mind is on all sorts of different things. Of course, remember that this is relatively important to this bot probably, but you shouldn't concentrate on doing what I'm doing now. Once you get this once out, even by fluke, just hold it and go with it. The key mostly is to not confirm the dash. Just dash and immediately do the other thing. And if your hands are fast enough, it'll just work out. So I'm trying to add the ice after that, which is the reason I would say you shouldn't spend a lot of time trying to do this because of that sequence being difficult mentally. What you can try is to do the entire thing, and every time, even if you mess it up, because it will help overall. No, that is so far off what I wanted. So, one more time. This is especially hard for people who have characters who have dash-in combos because you've already learned the fine thing for doing it well, and then it gets complicated. I'm not sure what she'll get because, again, back throws can mess up a lot of inputs in some weird ways, but maybe it will help defend against cross-ups or something. So now she's fully equipped for pretty much everything. And it doesn't look... Well, actually I was jumping at the time, so I can't tell how that worked out. Oh, and that timing makes everything work in at least one way. I am not sure if that turned out to be the counter I wanted it to be. So we're back to working on, can I jump in on this bot? But she definitely has a lot of spaces and timings where jumping on her is easy. In fact, you could jump after she counters. And the best thing to do as a player would be to tell yourself that I'm not going to do that, and I don't get points if I jump in on her directly after she has missed the counter. Maybe you can give points for doing something else altogether if she happens to do that. Because as you can see, it's fairly easy to jump in on her at that point. But we're going back to doing basic Ryu tests, which involves shurikens. And seeing what shurikens bring up. Oh, that's nice. But I'm thinking that that's pretty assured that she missed the second counter. However, now that I'm realizing it, she could just do crouching heavy punch and solve a lot of problems. Because that will anti-air a lot of things. So while I'm not going to put that in myself, other people can do that, the general thing. I don't even... Wait, what? I'm pretty sure the only EX counter she has in there is the high one. But that was a Shoryuken, so I'm not going to ask her any questions at this point. Capcom will explain this to me later. I will demand an explanation for everyone's benefit. Okay, so she's looking clean at the moment for the most part. Working out the point system would probably be the next thing to do, but that doesn't need to be on this stream, and you'll see what happens otherwise. He can counter that! He just can't counter that at the timing I thought he could. That's something interesting for Ryu players to look into then. If you counter her jump in, if you parry her jump in, and she goes straight into super, there's presumably a timing where you could also parry the super. It's just not the immediate timing you'd expect it to be. So yes, there's a lot of stuff you can learn by parrying them at... Ooh, that might be useful. Didn't think that she would even have that with that timing, but it's good that she does. So you can see this is... I'm willing to say this is the complete Kolin bot. If anyone has any suggestions, this will be up on YouTube. You can leave your suggestions in the comments. I'll just go through the basic tests and that'll be it for tonight. So parry a bunch of stuff. And if you're not good at parrying, use it as learning to time stuff against whatever bot. It's useful to know sometimes. Ooh, she has the whole thing. That's probably bad. I did not intend that. But, good for her. Congratulations on your incredible botness. But as you can see, you may have some trouble if you leave this bot's EX bar at full. But as I said, the instructions for what exactly you should use to check against her will be up somewhere. Alright, we're done with that for now. The parrying, she's not really the type of character where the parrying is going to change a lot of what she does. So fortunately we don't have to spend as much time on the parrying phase of this. The Shoryuken phase is a little more important, but this is mostly to show you how often she quick rises, what she does when she's hit out of certain moves. Generally you don't want to just uppercut her in neutral though, because it doesn't give you a good idea of how things work. You're looking to uppercut her at the ends of moves, in the middle of random things. If you could keep your eyes closed and choose your timings by that and then work it out, you'd probably be good. Ooh, I need to actually use that in my own game. That is totally different than I expected. So the Kolin bot has taught me something today. Uppercut her out of that. And then you can do things like standing light kick stuff, just standing light kick pressure. It helps you check how much of your time you put into her inputs being blocked, for her not being completely useless. For this particular bot, Tatsu stuff is useful because she ducks under Tatsu for a lot of the things she does. So it's mostly just those things. Light kick pressure to see where you can interrupt it and how it behaves if you don't. So that just an EX, never mind. For this particular bot I'm using Tatsu pressure. Sure, you can help. Parry's help. Once you've done that, maybe crouching light kick sometimes, but it doesn't really mean that much difference from standing. At that point you've probably got everything you need. One thing you could probably do for, not necessarily points, but just for practice, is that if she does do the counter randomly, you can try to crush counter her if you really want to do advanced stuff, because it's not really that hard to crush counter her on those. You'll quickly learn, as most players learn very fast, that just because Kolin has done her counter doesn't mean you can beat her up. Especially her EX ones. I'm not really sure if they technically recover faster, in the sense that they're much more visually obvious. But you can't really bait the bot into it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to ask how I got the Blizzard healer there. I'm thankful, but that's probably a cross-up thing and it's never going to happen. A shame though. Oh well, at least it gives her mobility. She can also be useful for air throw stuff. Definitely a good chance of air throw practice. hits. Good stuff. And fortunately, she doesn't have a lot of things that don't work in the expected way that you would have to. There are certain bots that have interesting things that recreate, mostly because they were put in some strange way. And you'll see them end up different on different channels, for example. Interestingly, it caused a lot of her movement caused the B skill itself to be lost. But that's okay because technically we wanted that to happen a lot of the time. We don't just want her spamming B skill in neutral, even though that helps you to practice it. I'm sure you can find enough actual online Kolin to practice punishing with random B skill. So she's got mix-up, she's got supers, she's got counters, and she's got vanity stat stuff. It may not match a bunch of Kolin that we're aware of, but it's sure to give you something. So if you don't feel comfortable against the character, this is a bunch of things that you could then become comfortable against. Looking very much like she's a bot that you leave on the meter is for. Because if she's properly engaged, she shouldn't do too much of any one thing. I'm not really finding myself feeling the jump in on her goal as one of the optimal things. But maybe we can make it a goal to cross her up. Because that can become a problem. She is evasive enough that, and goes into the air enough that, yeah, it's easy to say, okay, I'm going to jump in on her from all the way over here because I can control that. But maybe she's useful as the how can I land my cross up spot. Because she doesn't necessarily stay still long enough for you to just go, okay, she's down, I'm instantly going to jump again. If you have a good setup that leaves her in cross up position after a knockdown, that's good. But then you have the tiny chance of her countering you on to jump in. So, let's go with that. If you have problems with your cross-up combos, this may be the bot for you. Remember not to give yourself any points for crossing her up directly after she actually does the counter. You can probably do the cross-up anyway, but just don't give yourself any score for it. And use it to practice your difficult cross-up combos. Because if you mess them up, she's not going to let you get away with it. So that's it for tonight, everyone. You've seen how to enter the Kolin bot and the entire process that I used from watching matches to figuring out what exactly I can use to where I can throw in which input. And the basics of where I come up with point systems. I hope it's helpful to you, and I hope that you can come up with your own if it doesn't suit you. Let me know if you come up with anything to replace any of the input she has now, or just how it goes in general.